In a time and place where you can work from anywhere.
Two ladies in their mid to late 27s have decided to.
And they're calling it Workationing.
First up, Aguada, Puerto Rico.
A town so cool, Angela Keaton of antiwar.com came to visit.
How did Angela talk her way out of going to a Portuguese prison?
How was her stay at a sex hotel?
And do the vibrating beds actually work there?
What the fuck is a bike rodeo?
This is the Workationing Podcast. Hi, it's Kari, and I am joined on this workationing adventure, this Puerto Rico leg of workation, with Miss Angela Keaton of antiwar.com. Hi, Angela.
Hello.
We're really excited to have her here. And how long have you been here in Aguada, Puerto Rico?
A week now.
Pretty exciting. And we leave tomorrow.
Yes.
Okay, so Angela, what do you do and how do you make the digital nomad lifestyle work? Or I guess you're new to it. So what about the digital nomad lifestyle appeals to you?
Well, my main job that people mostly know about is I'm the executive director of antiwar.com, or rather the Randolph Bourne Institute, which produces antiwar.com, a website, nothing but news. News and views about foreign policy.
And what about the digital nomad lifestyle is appealing to you?
Several things. One, because of the nature of my job, I think I should be a little more familiar with the places that I read about and talk about. So I'm slowly kind of making my way around the places where I need to be. It's the U.S. empire is present everywhere. And now that I notice that and see that, it helps me see from the point of view of the people who live in the places that the U.S. has occupied. It helps me. It just helps me have a little more, I think, as much as I'm capable of having compassion.
And so you would say that your travels have expanded or shifted your perspective?
They have, and part of it is the current political climate in the U.S., the continental U.S., is not where the anti-war movement really is at the moment. It's a very difficult time to really get people on to think about anti-imperialism, anti-empire, and occupation and torture issues without bringing in every aspect of partisan politics that generally have more to do with people's personal preferences and that are not strictly ideological needs. So that part of it, it's not something I necessarily think of as a full-time. It's something I would do certain days of the month or a week or two out of every month and see where it would lead me or take me. But yes, I do enjoy that. I enjoy not being so close to this seems to be the emotional outpouring since this last election. I prefer being away from that. I think it's much more productive and I can be much more objective about my tasks.
And what is your educational background? How did you become the executive director of antiwar.com?
Through a series of poor choices and bad planning. No, antiwar.com is one of the dream jobs, and I've had dream jobs along the way. I've been extremely fortunate with that. But my academic background, I'm not sure how much exactly relates to my career. I have a master's degree in political science, and I have a significant post-bac studies in religion. I have a law degree, and I dropped out of a perfectly good PhD program to pursue some of my many lists of things that I needed to do at the time.
And how often do you work from the road?
It depends on time of year. There's certain convention seasons that where I generally make appearances or where antiwar.com really needs to have a presence. So that often is literally working on the road because that's where the work is. I also, too, work from the San Francisco office of antiwar.com, which is not where I'm based out of, but I have to be willing to be portable to get the work done. I have to go to donors, to activists, to journalists.
And did you have to convince anybody to let you do this?
Antiwar.com is a very unconventional workspace. So there's all kinds of things going on in different modes, whether people in the office, people away, people who only work in the middle of the night. It's an unusual place, and I'm very lucky to be there.
What's the coolest place you've ever worked from?
Oh, gosh. Chile? I mean, in recent years, yes. That was a lot of fun.
How long did you spend there?
2 weeks.
And was that with antiwar.com or was that with another organization?
I was there. I mean, I was definitely making an appearance on behalf of antiwar.com and making my own appearances as a public speaker on these issues.
What did you love about Chile?
Well, every time I go someplace, I love generally everything about it. Everything. I mean, it was actually unbelievably beautiful. Seeing the Pacific from there and places to stay, it's just absolutely stunning coastline, the valleys, the sharp mountain peaks. What I didn't like about it were the constant earthquakes.
How constant is constant?
I live in Los Angeles, and I found this utterly unnerving. I don't know how people live like this all the time, but things shake all the time. And I was in the apartment house of our host for the event, and the apartment started shaking back and forth. It was a 13th-story apartment, and I was surrounded by several different people of note within certain political movements, and I thought to myself, my God, this is how I'm going to die, surrounded by these freaks and a bunch of kitty litter.
And I just want to note that as you were telling that story the whole time, you were moving your hand like a pendulum and in a very wide range of degrees that I find very concerning. Was that your scariest travel moment?
That was, oh no, I think that was almost getting arrested in Portugal. That, many years ago, a few decades ago. I think that was probably my scariest moment. I've had a lot of strange. My life has been strung together of a lot of strange, weird, interesting encounters.
Can I ask you what you got almost arrested for in Portugal?
I very foolishly, didn't pay attention to the good old Rick Steves advice about not getting into vans with strangers at airports. And the person I was traveling with and I really had to sleep. We'd been up all night going from, I think, Madrid to Lisbon. And it was an unfortunate circumstances, and we should have known better. And she wasn't an inexperienced traveler, so it was kind of silly what we did. But anyway, we ended up at a place that did not really have rooms that were finished. I mean, by finished, I don't mean like had sheets in the beds. I mean like doors and boards and things. So we were trying to sleep, and hearing the crazy amount of construction. And they moved us to a second room that they said they would be quieter, and it was actually much, much louder. And I finally just cracked, and traveling companion and we just literally ran out of there screaming after being sleep deprived. And then the owners were chasing us around.
That is very scary.
Screaming, yes. But yeah, I mean, granted, probably somewhat self-induced in terms of I suppose I could have left more ladylike, but there's a moment, we all have our breaking points.
What is your favorite travel experience or the best travel experience you've ever had?
Oh, I've been really lucky. I've had some amazingly beautiful experiences all over the U.S., Canada, and Mexico, but other places too. I guess maybe my favorite travel experience. Oh God, this is a hard one. The ones I suppose that generally have to do with hiking have been some of my favorites, even though they're not necessarily kind of travel for the same purposes. I truly loved Costa Rica. It was a very unusual, unfortunate experience with the not great travel companions, but it was really just a wonderful experience. Seeing a place where there isn't a whole lot of military presence, where the people there are very proud of their country, their traditions. They love showing it to people and love showing it off. Fruits, I don't know. It was just a beautiful, wonderful experience. And I know lots of people love Costa Rica. For me, that was a chance to explore some things I hadn't explored before, including doing stupid, silly things like zip lining, which I don't think is particularly impressive, but I did it because I wanted to conquer my fear of heights. That
sounds awesome. Do you try and conquer fears as much as you can that way? The
ongoing battle with the fear of heights, this goes on. It's just an ongoing, it's an ongoing list of tests. I'm always testing myself. And I hike and I airplane travel all the time, so you'd think I wouldn't necessarily have a fear of heights, but I always have. And I realized this as a little girl in the World Trade Center.
What has been your worst travel experience, would you say? I know we already touched on your scariest, but have you just had an overall terrible travel experience anywhere?
Well, I mean, in my younger days, I was kind of like a punk rock kid, an anarchist type, so I did a lot of the kind of sleazy hitchhiking, couch surfing kind of traveling. Perhaps, I don't know, probably the worst experience for everyone else involved was when one of my best friends and I decided we were going to take the outer limits of ephedra to see how far we can go. We just took my car and we not only traveled to Windsor, Ontario, but we went back into Ohio and went to all the major cities. I don't know why we did that, but it was a lot of fun. It was worse. I mean, it was probably worse for everyone who had to deal with us on that trip. But I'm trying to think of my worst travel experience. I've been to some screwed up places all over the U.S. and in the outside world, though, in foreign countries, I wouldn't say this is the worst. I don't know if this is the right way to say it, but I found Poland to be very grim and depressing. And I don't like this. Maybe sounds horrible. It sounds like I'm condemning a whole country of people, but it just was a place where that would not be my choice to visit a second time around. I visit a lot of places a second time around, but that probably wouldn't be my first choice.
Well, let's talk about food. You're a vegetarian. Have you always been a vegetarian?
Oh wow, I've never said that publicly in an interview before. I've either
we can cut that out if you
don't.
don't.
No. I mean, it's fine. I've never said that before because I live in a weird world where expressing preferences is confused as a political statement. So I'm always very careful to not say those sorts of things. But I've pretty much been somewhere between vulgar pescatarian and high vegan all my life. I mean, pretty much. It was pretty early on, and my family is very open to all kinds of diets and health crankery and different theories on nutrition. So it was not something controversial.
There has not been a lot of vegetarian food I've noticed in Aguada specifically. You've been eating a lot of plantains here.
I love plantains.
Plantains of all kinds.
I have eaten plantains many different ways, and I love them. No apologies.
Okay, so what is the weirdest, best, and worst food you've ever eaten on the road?
Oh, I'm trying to. God, I don't. This thing you've lived a long time, you forget so many things. A Chinese restaurant in North Carolina might have been the worst restaurant I've ever been in. It was the saddest thing. It was just a few serving like these aluminum serving trays with little Bunsen burners on them, and they're mostly filled with steaming water, and there were some vegetables in them. That was maybe one of the worst. This is not something I would definitely recommend, but when I was discovering Mennonite country in Ohio, I had deep fried sauerkraut balls.
I have not had those before.
No. Oh no, it's their specialty.
Are they good?
It's. I'm glad I tried them. They can certainly make them. It certainly can be done vegetarian. I'm glad it's something. It was something worth doing, and it's kind of thing like if you see sauerkraut balls and you're already a little bit tweaked out, and you see sauerkraut balls, it gets funnier, and then you've got to try them. So we did, and we scandalized some Mennonites in Ohio somewhere coming into their restaurant, but they were very lovely, and it was a very, very.
Did they come with a dipping sauce?
I'm trying to remember. I don't know if they call it dipping sauce. I'm not like I'm not like an expert on like Germanic styles of cooking. In fact, I kind of find most of that Northern European food, Western, not really food. I'm sorry. I don't mean to condemn. Yeah, I just thank God for immigration, refugees, colonialism, because otherwise our food would be Anglo. God. Oh. I mean, I don't know. I guess I wouldn't be here if it weren't for immigration. So never mind. I would never have had to taste American food in the first place. But yes, I'd say the best, worst. Wait, is there a third one?
Best, worst, and weirdest.
Oh.
I think sauerkraut balls with no dipping sauce sound awfully weird to me. I guess some Russian dressing, maybe.
I have my own strangeness. I have even if I weren't a vegetarian, I would have this campaign against this thing called ranch and this other thing called mayonnaise.
Oh God, you have not even tried the mayo ketchup here, and it's everywhere. You just avoid it.
Oh,
you're not even curious about it.
No. I'm actively avoiding it. I'm trying. My life is very peaceful and has been really peaceful for the past few years. So I'm really trying to not cause it stress, and I think that would stress me a bit.
I have been raging against all ranch varieties with the exception of Hidden Valley since I was a very young child. I think that there's one type of ranch. It's Hidden Valley Ranch. You can go with Hidden Valley Light if you prefer, but Kraft and all the others are just terrible imposters.
What do you do with the ranch dressing?
Dip everything in it. Broccoli, salad, carrots. What can you dip in ranch? Everything. You can dip chicken fingers in ranch. There's a lot that you can do with ranch.
Yeah, this is just like it just seems like it's a whole other culture that I can observe from like a few feet away, but it's
French fries. You can dip French fries in ranch. You can dip your pizza in ranch.
Why?
Pepperoni pizza in ranch. The inner fat kid in me is really coming out right now. It is delicious. And if you haven't tried it, you are missing out, lady.
There are vegetarian places that do their own versions of veganese, but I don't think it's anything like as clear. And I imagine there are places that do the versions of ranch. So I'm probably so anti-ranch that I would probably reject even the vegetarians. But Sauces are very important to the whole vegetarian thing. I love sauces, and then just when I see sauce catastrophes or fiascos, like
Is it any creamy sauce you avoid?
well, certainly the mayo ketchup. What is the mayo ketchup called? Even does it have a name?
No, they call it mayo ketchup. And when we first heard our waitress, because we were like, "Oh, what is this delightful aioli?" She was like, "It's mayo ketchup," but we thought she said magic ketchup, and we were like, "Oh, indeed, this is magic ketchup. Please bring us more. Can we please have several more ramekins?" And then somebody else said mayo ketchup, and I went to the store looking for this magic ketchup, because you better believe we were going to get some of this for the house. And it was mayo ketchup. And we were disappointed, horrified, and just charging full steam ahead with that purchase anyway, because it's good. I don't care what you say. It's basically Big Mac sauce without the relish.
Well, that's a selling point. It's almost like a horror story. Big Mac sauce. I guess we were chatting to go at Amsterdam off air earlier, and one of the things that people are always trying to implore you to try is whatever sauce that is, that whatever the delicious fried potatoes that every country has some version of, some kind of fried root. And I love my root vegetables, but there's no reason for whatever that sauce is.
I'm pretty sure it's just straight mayo.
Yeah, that's unnecessary.
I agree with you. Straight mayo is a bit much for me. You put any kind of seasoning in it, though, and I am down.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm taking my anti-mayo commitment further. I'm just saying no.
Okay.
No.
All right, you can just say no, but you still need to tell me the weirdest food you've ever eaten on the road.
The weirdest food. I'm trying and it might have, the other things that on that Mennonite menu might have been
it was the best because you already told me about the sauerkraut balls.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. I'm trying to think. I mean, I'm sure there's something. I'm sure there'll be something in my life that will top it. I should probably say this though. This is in different cultures in the U.S. I was a teenager the first time I tried grits because I grew up in New York, and I went to the University of Florida, which I might as well have gone to another country. So I had this thing called grits for the first time, and I think it was the first time I had those kind of Southern style biscuits too, and that was really exciting.
Did you like it?
Grits? Oh yeah.
I have only had grits that I've liked one time, and they were just insanely, obnoxiously cheesy.
Oh yeah, I would exclude the cheese. Maybe use something else. But it's somewhat similar to polenta. It's kind of like the poor man's polenta.
Okay. I like polenta. I've had polenta that I've enjoyed. What is, if you wouldn't mind telling me, the most scandalous travel story that you're willing to share?
Oh, what I'm willing to share. Scandalous. I took a trip. I was a station manager of a radio station in Austin, and I took a trip with our CEO to Mexico City, and we ended up having to stay at what they call a sex motel, because that was like the cheapest motel we could and one we could afford.
Did you know it was a sex motel? Was it called the sex motel?
It basically only had pornography on the channels.
Okay.
The bathroom shower situation was very weird. And the bed had and I'm sure no listeners ever knows that this is long since disappeared from American history, but the vibrating bed.
Did you have to put in quarters, or did it just work for free?
It was change or something. I mean, not quarters, but whatever. Yeah. Yes.
Describe this weird shower.
I remember it being huge. It was unusually a bathroom disproportionate in size with not much in it. And it was all red tile. It was actually probably the prettiest part of this hotel, which had seen better days. And it also too really had to be, the locks didn't quite work right, because I don't think people stay for very long, but we stayed overnight.
Okay. And how was your stay there?
It was part of a very unusual trip. I was following a bicycle rodeo around one of these groups that was a splinter of the Burning Man world. Which,
when you said bicycle rodeo, because I think just briefly mentioned that you were hanging out with a bike rodeo earlier, I thought you meant motorcycle, and I thought it was like a rodeo for bikers. Bicycle rodeo?
Bicycle rodeo, yes.
What is a bicycle rodeo?
Yeah, it's a kind of a riffraff that used to be in the Burning Man world. I've been kind of way out of that. I'm now I'm one of these jaded people who spends a lot of time in San Francisco and doesn't care anymore. But that back in the day, yes, it was a bicycle rodeo, and they had a school bus. The trip, it started out as my work trip, and then my family came, and then we went to, we on the bus, and it was a giant school bus with a lot of riffraff, criminal tribes, as well as a few hipster douchebags. Can we say douchebags on your show?
Yeah.
Okay.
Of
All right.
course.
So, but yeah, it was a great trip. I slept on top of a school bus in a puddle. That was a wonderful, amazing trip. And I guess we'll get to that. I don't want to spoil your questions, but I've been thinking about the questions you want people to reflect on. So I don't usually do lifestyle interviews. I hope I'm not screwing this up too much.
No, I think you're doing great. What do I know, though? I just started. I'm brand new here.
well, part of it, the whole workation, when you brought this concept into my life.
Right.
So this is not something I had heard before. We'd met at a conference and you were discussing it with me, and that was the first time I'd really, heard about it, and it became intriguing. And then when you were sending me clips and telling me a little bit about your experience through text, I thought for some reason it kind of seemed to be calling me, and then a family member said, "Yeah, I think you should go. I really should go." So I'm so
excited that you did.
Oh, I'm very glad I came here. It's been a top secret trip.
Wait, we can talk more about that in a second, because I want to get back to your bike rodeo roadie days.
Oh, yeah.
Were you reporting on that scene, or?
Well, a family member of mine was writing a book on Burning Man. And it was one of the first books available at the time. So the research was getting detailed. And I, being a station manager of a hard leftist radio station is really kind of an unusual experience anyway. So they encourage these things like being in Mexico. So these people were people that were definitely in and out of my life. I think I might have mentioned earlier, I came from a pretty scuzzy punk rock scene. And from Gainesville, Florida. I grew up in New York, but I ended up as a teenager on my own in Gainesville. And I was a homeschooled kid, so I didn't, I was not always, I was maybe innocent in some ways. And what was, now when people don't know what this group, but it was a bunch of young anarchists, and the anarchist kids occasionally would make these chapters of these thing called college libertarians, and people that are interested in philosophy can look it up. I'm not a proselytizer on that sort of thing, but the scene was pretty sleazy, and and it was filled with all kinds of people, both working class and graduate students and that sort of thing. So, and counterculture people, even a black skinhead. It was weird. It was a weird time. And so coming from that world, I don't know where this is going, but yeah, you
lost your sense of what weird was, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, to me, eccentric behavior to me has to be something that destroys a business deal, or that just disrespectful, let's say, to being a place of worship or something. But most behavior that's unusual or lifestyles unusual don't really faze me in particular. I've seen a lot. I might sound somewhat younger, but I'm older, and I just there isn't really much I haven't seen. There's a bit of jadedness there, which is kind of why traveling again and being out on the road is a very, very good thing. It does reverse that jadedness.
Okay, so there are 4 rules of workationing, as you know, and actually we added a 5th one since we've been here. So, number 1, you have to make more money than you spend. This was not an expensive trip, I don't think, overall. And then pack light. I saw your tiny little suitcase. You check that box for sure. You have to stay in one place long enough. Rule number 3, you have to stay in one place long enough to accomplish a personal and professional goal. How was it like working on Workation in Aguada this week?
It was very, very good. Because I didn't feel the physical pull of the political world I live in. I was able to get work done objectively and not feel any kind of stress. And I did not, and my fellow staff members have all been quietly working with a lot of projects going on. So it gave me some time to work in quiet and not with the constant phone ringing. And I also didn't make it a point to spend as much time on the phone as I would and spend more time in correspondence. So for me, it was a very good experience.
Were you able to accomplish any professional goals while you were here, or work toward them? Well,
that goal with working, and also too with my freelance work and my other businesses, it helped me rethink what's reasonable in terms of my actual schedule.
And do you think you have more clarity on that now?
Oh, much more clarity.
And do you think that being here helped you get to that point faster than if you were at home?
Yes, and your example. I mean, when you first introduced this idea, I didn't realize how formal you were going to be about it. But then, as I've learned more about it, it's come together. I mean, it's a very different trip than I probably initially imagined. I'm not entirely sure what I imagined.
Well, I think that the biggest part for us is accountability, and so as long as we're hitting our professional goals, outlining them is a big part of that. So in order to hit your professional goals, you have to know what they are. So to write them out is a first step in that process that is a requirement before you kind of get here. But then also with your personal stuff too. Like, what kind of personal goals do you have now that you have kind of the space to breathe away from a lot of the stresses that are at home? Because there are usually a lot of stresses at home. How can you reflect on that and make changes as necessary when you're not kind of in the eye of the storm?
Well, yeah, I've been very, very fortunate because I'm kind of in charge of my business and schedule to a large degree. The last few years of my life have been just amazingly unstressful. But one of the things I'm trying to do now with travel is think about new life goals that are not strictly self-improvement, but things that I really do want, tangible things. So that's part of it too, clearing up a new phase of my life. It's marking too. I had one of the reasons why I wanted to go to Puerto Rico is I'd been to Puerto Rico before, and I'm kind of in a place where I'm trying to revisit places I've been with different people and trying to have different experiences, and in a way kind of rewriting some of the chapters of my earlier life.
Mm-hmm. Has this chapter in Aguada been a positive one for you?
It has been spectacularly positive, even with some of the horrifying things you've promised that were going to happen in this apartment.
The iguana meet got canceled.
It did, and I was going to take some Xanax so I could watch the horror show, but I don't know. I'm feeling better now.
I think Kelly's feeling better that the iguana meat guy was out at sea fishing for the biggest lobsters I've ever seen.
But you have an iguana meat guy, and that I think is
I have an iguana meat guy in my cell phone. So if you change your mind on this, he loves to text. I can make some magic happen if you ever change your mind and decide to try out that iguana meat. It's red meat, by the way.
Yeah, I think probably I've in my adult life probably only eaten animal flesh, I think 6 times. So so I'm not sure I'm probably the right audience for that. Also, too, I just find iguanas, breathing iguanas, repulsive. I mean, I respect them as animals.
You should see the dead ones.
I don't know.
Cleared off of the sidewalk by the time you got here.
No,
they were huge.
Oh my God, it's disgusting.
Some Jurassic Park looking shit.
That they belong in that era. They should go back to that era.
They
really
are not supposed to be here, but they're here, and they're scaring the locals and tourists. So in the same vein as the professional goal vein, Kelly and I have also tied that to a bucket list item. So do you have a bucket list?
Well, someone asked me that years ago in Chile, and I said, no, I'm living my bucket list.
Okay.
But yeah, there's personal goals right now is, yes, I'm revisiting certain places, and I've been very, very lucky to have a restart on my life in many ways. So that's the revisiting and then exploring new places. And, my life after a lot of my work has fallen under, the past 8 years has fallen under the category of political activism, and I'm moving away from that. So that's also too is my next career chapter is what I'm looking at.
Okay. And what's your favorite thing that you've ever crossed off of your bucket list?
Oh gosh, in my various attempts to conquer fear of heights, what used to be called the Sears Tower, stepping on the glass.
The ledge. I've done that.
Yes, and I'll demonstrate for you. I wish this is the only time I wish we were doing video. But
okay, I will describe. Oh, she's doing a little tap toe. Like, am I going to step on this dance? Oh, she jumps on, but just with one foot. Oh no,
that went on for about 15 minutes, and people are staring.
Oh, and there's a line behind you. Yes. There's a line behind your panic attack.
Yeah, this is great. It's great. That was not my first one. That was my one as a fully grown woman, a mature woman. It was basically something similar that had happened to me. It was a little girl. I begged and begged and begged to go to the top of the World Trade Center, and I did. And it was. I had the predictable reaction that a small child who has panic attacks and didn't want to see New Jersey from a window anyway would have.
And so you don't have anything that's left on your bucket list that you really want to do before you die? Anything in particular?
Oh, I definitely want to visit the Middle East and Central Asia. And the last opportunities I had to do it were disrupted for various reasons, but that would definitely be something that must be done before I die.
Okay.
Well, it can't be done after I die, I suppose. I don't know. I mean, time travel is kind of on my list too, but I'm not sure how feasible that is.
We know some smart people.
I do know some smart people. I'm very, very lucky that way.
And this wasn't on your bucket list, but I think it's only because you didn't know about it. But
That's right.
We went swimming in the Bio Bay last night. And do you think that is totally bucket list worthy?
This is totally selfish, but seeing the sparkles on my wetsuit after I got out and touching it, and listen, it would respond to the sparkles and feeling, and I was totally sparkly and not feeling in awful shape that day. It was great. That was great. But no, seeing everyone just dive in, and you were swimming around and you can see the glows around all of you. And it was just the captain and the people we were with and silence and beauty. Oh, it was stunning. These things can't be described. They can only be described in deep purples and violets and lights, and the beautiful parade of houses that were on the water and built on the water with the decks right in the water. It was something really remarkable.
I've never seen anything like it before. So this Bio Bay that we went to on the western half of Puerto Rico, or western side of Puerto Rico, is a place where it's plankton, right? These one-celled organisms that light up when they're disturbed. And we went on just the most gorgeous night for it. And we took a later boat, so we were the only people in the Bio Bay. We had the whole Bio Bay to ourselves. It was a very dark night. Just a sliver of a moon was out. And we were splashing around in that glowy stuff for a really long time. It was amazing. And those of you who are listening, if you have an opportunity, do a Google image search for Bio Bay, Puerto Rico. That stuff is mostly Photoshopped because you can't really I think that's so dirty.
It's impossible to photograph it. I tried very hard to photograph all of you. It just was impossible. I could not get any images. And maybe it's too beautiful and sacred to be photographed. But I think there was a message last night, if I believed in anything remotely spiritual, I guess, that the boat captain had been a professor of marine biology, and now this is what he was doing, was taking people out in the bay.
That was very cool. And he gave us an education on the way there, and I think he was really happy to see what a good time we were having, too, because we were all geeked. We were all just completely in awe at how beautiful everything was. It was incredible. Totally bucket list worthy. It was on my bucket list.
I'm really grateful I got to experience that with you all.
Me too. I'm so happy you were there. Okay, so travel karma is a thing. You should always keep it positive. That's rule number 4 of workationing. But rule number 5 of workationing that we added when we were here is never be afraid to change your mind. And when you do, don't view it as a personal failing. And so, Angela, I ask you, what was the last conversation you had with somebody that made you change your mind about something? And was it a long conversation? Was it a series of conversations?
The nature of my job often involves me to have to reconsider new facts constantly and changing positions or stepping back and rethinking how I look at something. So in that part, I had to get over the ego and humiliation many years ago on that, and really just learn how to, I don't know everything. I don't have all the available facts, and sometimes my perceptions of things aren't right. And that's just part of maturity. Though, in terms of like things that were like strongly, deeply held, over the years, I have past 5 years, the matter of the Syrian war and the way it's framed has been a profound change in how I see that, and it really, I think, has been something that has underlying, in some way, has unconsciously influenced my ideological thinking over the past few years as well.
And was that just news coverage that shifted your perspective on that, or talking with other people who directed you toward more information and facts?
Both, and also just reading more deeply about the United States or the CIA involvement in everyone's foreign policy. I mean, it's one thing to always know these things. Yeah, of course, everyone knows the CIA does hijinks abroad. I mean, that any person in the bar, any bar you walk into, someone knows that.
There are movies about it.
Yes, all right. I mean, it's just it's not a secret. It's one thing to know that in that sense, but it's another thing to really spend time thinking and reading about it. And that part, the part of Syria where initially my understanding of it, it's a civil war, and then it's moderate rebels, and then realize no, it's just a CIA coup. It's just I can try to only rationalize it for so long, and sadly some people didn't because of the initial interpretation I had of it being. There are some people who won't speak to me. And there's also too in certain segments of the anti-war movement, some split off because some people wanted to intervene in Syria. So it's actually been kind of an unfortunate situation in terms of activism. The story of Syria, and I hope this is not to politicize anything. I just hope that people read and understand just how horrible war is under any circumstances for any reason. And that part, that's I definitely have. But yeah, I'm in the process of changing it all the time. I think now.
Do you have any books or resources that you can recommend for people who want to look into that more?
For foreign policy, certainly antiwar.com. I highly recommend some of the following publications: The Future of Freedom, which is available online. That's fff.org, counterpunch.org, the Black Agenda Report. I also recommend The American Conservative. These are all, I'm pointing mostly to magazines and news sites so people can get, some news in and then think about what it is they want to read from there. But there's all kinds of great scholars on everything from blowback to CIA. For some things that I think are on some of the deep CIA research, I'd look up William Blum. He's a historian in his now late 80s, still writing on these things. So there's a lot I could recommend, but I just want people to, think deeply about why war.
If you could do one thing to change the world, what would you do, and what would the impact be, do you think?
I guess right now I guess I'm in the last stages of doing what I try to do to change the world. It's coming to a close. Not one person can do what it is I'm trying to do, but that's ending the project of U.S. empire, and the impact would be enormous for everyone. It would be unbelievably beneficial, peaceful, and financially profitable. People always tie capitalism to war, but a free market is a peaceful market, and so I didn't want people to confuse those things. So I think that would change the world. A truly free market where people just trade ideas, exchange things, food, services. So I think that, but I'm coming to the end of that stage in my life, and there's really no more work I can personally do on that. But there's many people who are doing great work on that currently.
With the rules of workationing, which I don't think that you were expecting that there would be rules of workationing.
No,
we didn't enforce them on you though. We tried to set a good example. But do you think that the rules as we've outlined them provide a framework that encourages more work to get done and more self-work too?
Yes, I think the rules are excellent. I think it's a really important, it's just the paradox. You have more spontaneity in your life when you follow certain regimens and routines and rules. And I ask myself certain questions every morning. I'm a devotee of cognitive behavioral therapy, which sounds cultish and weird and probably is, but it definitely has made a difference in terms of my behavior, in terms of my ethical behavior and being more productive.
One question that I didn't ask you earlier, I want to talk about traveling as a woman.
Yes.
And travel safety. So let's talk about traveling as a woman and travel safety.
Yes.
Do you usually travel alone? How do you travel usually?
A lot alone. I spend a lot of time alone.
And do you do hotels, Airbnbs?
I've done everything from couch surfing to strangers, which I not necessarily recommend, to sleeping on the floor of a restroom near Waco, Texas, to occasional 5-star hotels not paid for by me or on my salary. So I've been lucky. It's funny you say as a woman, this might be a peculiar thing to say. Only in the past year or so have I ever described myself as a woman. I think I spent most of my life trying to prove my masculinity and that I can be as masculine, hence gender superior, and not needing any sort of physical protection. And I think about that, trying to prove that and putting myself in some rather dangerous and risky situations. It is different for every woman anywhere traveling anywhere.
Right.
That's just the reality of it. And things like, keeping windows open. And this is the truth, even though when I'm at home too. It's just like, it's nice. It's beautiful out today here. I mean,
Right.
we're not on the first floor, but if we were on the first floor, and it wouldn't matter where, keeping the patio door open or keeping the windows open, letting that beautiful balminess breeze come in is not something you necessarily do, or you don't think about as much if you're a man of any kind.
Right. Do you ever feel unsafe traveling by yourself?
Oh yeah, there's definitely been moments. Some of them are the self-induced moments. Like I'm absolutely fearful of driving over bridges. So the self-induced ones are certainly, but the ones where it involves like something we're approaching gendered violence. Through the years, one time I was traveling with, I think it was that trip I might have been talking about earlier. A friend of mine and I were in a little kind of rooms they allow you to have when you have your Euro pass, and some guy just shows up, joins in, and sleeps, and he was a freak. That happened. Situations where just an unfortunate situation was one where I was too tongue-tied to even attempt to try to explain myself in another language, and was really fearful and couldn't couldn't figure out where I was going, and I needed to find an address, and this is an era at the time without cell phones. So that was, or maybe it was with cell phone. I think it was actually more recently, but yeah, that part was frightening. The gendered violence part. I mean, it's something to always kind of think about. Men are there, though. I just have become extremely cautious. That hasn't made me fearful, and it hasn't made me not take chances. But I've just become much more aware of my surroundings. And if I'm with a group of people, I really make it a point to know who I'm traveling with. And even people that I love, I probably wouldn't necessarily travel with. I don't think they would make safe, sensible companions.
What steps do you take to stay safe on the road?
It depends what I'm allowed to take to some degree. When I'm traveling on the road in the U.S., I usually have something with me. It's a little bit harder, and this is the United States government. Because of TSA rules, traveling with weaponry is a little different. And because I don't want to check weapons. I need to have them on me. They don't do me any good if I can't get to them.
Right.
I'm very short and small. I'm not very fast. There's no, it's just, if I don't have something immediately on me, I'm doomed.
Are there any things that you look for in terms of safe neighborhoods when you're staying places, or do you just kind of jump in and make the best of the situation?
I want to think I do more of the former. I think I've done a lot more of the latter in my life. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure how good that's been. I'm much more of a believer in planning now. Though most people, most places you go, people want visitors. They want to show the beautiful things they have off, and they should be proud of them. And very, very fortunate to have had mostly pretty good experiences. The lack of safety. I live in Los Angeles. I'm used to always living in cities and walking alone. I walk on both Hollywood and Sunset Boulevard at night. But I'm not an idiot about it. I'm constantly aware of my surroundings and looking around. And I also try to carry myself, even though I might not be the biggest, strongest person. I try to carry myself in a certain way to make sure that it's clear that I'm not to be screwed with.
How do you know when you're in a bad situation and you need to get out? Like, is there any trigger for you?
I used to not pay attention to those instincts. I used to be too rational. One of the things I would say is, I don't see evidence. I need evidence to be afraid of something. And that's wonderful as a lawyer, but that's not a way as a woman that one should travel. One should always trust one's instincts, irrespective of any other implication. If your gut is telling you there's a problem, there's a problem. And by the gut, that sense, that uncomfortableness, that's something that it's not a sixth sense. It's just that your body, you're processing little tiny, maybe people's eye movements or the way they've carried themselves or something that they've said that you realize, that means something else. Those moments are what matter. It's not necessarily, you don't need to go by evidence or be even being rational. It's actually safer to be irrational in those circumstances.
Right. Well, would you come workationing again?
I will definitely become workationing again. This has been a very important part of 2017 so far.
I'm so excited you came. I'm so excited you had a good experience. I'm so excited you like the rules.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us on this podcast. Is there anything that I asked you that you want to say that we didn't cover?
No, I just wish I had been a little more articulate. I'm not necessarily great with lifestyle interviews, but I really appreciate the chance to talk about workationing, and hopefully more people will join.
Yay! Thanks.
This has been another episode of the Workationing podcast. If you like what you heard here, make sure to like, rate, subscribe, and leave us a review on iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play, or wherever else on the internet you're hearing this.
You can also go to workationing.com. That's workationing.com.
What the fuck is a bike rodeo?
I don't know. This is the Workationing pod. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
That really tickled. Because what the fuck is a bike rodeo? Yeah. Let's do it again.
All right. In a time and place where you can work.
I'm still having a bike rodeo. Okay.